Hello everybody, welcome to the July forecast. I'm sorry if you can hear any background noise. I have both my fan and my AC on. It is a hot day in Connecticut and I feel like shit, but we're going to get right into this. Sorry, sometimes I forget that I literally need to maintain being professional on Patreon. I just feel like I'm in a little campfire circle with my girlies, so I don't think about it too much, but I probably should. Very big, intense month. 2023 is just a big, intense year, and so is 2024. But I would say July is definitely one of the bigger pivotal months because we have the nodes changing signs. So if you didn't listen to the June recap video that was posted yesterday, it should be the last post before this one. I highly recommend it just because it might give you a little bit of an introduction or a segue into what I'm about to explain with the nodes. But basically, if you're maybe newer here and you weren't around a year and a half ago, I know a lot of you from then are still here, so I think some of you guys have it down pat a little bit better than maybe the newcomers. But we have the nodes. There's a north and a south node. They're not planets, they're mathematical markers in the sky. They're always going to be directly opposite each other, and they always move counterclockwise, they always move clockwise while all the planets move counterclockwise. So they kind of function on their own axis, and they take about 18 months to transit a pair of sister signs. They'll stay in those two signs for 18 months, and among those 18 months, for everybody, regardless of the signs, the planets, your, whatever, anything regarding your chart, everybody in the world feels the effects of what is essentially focusing on and prioritizing the themes of the north node. You can think of it like a north star kind of guiding us where we're supposed to go, versus the south node kind of indicating things that we're supposed to be letting go of, not because they're inherently bad, but we've already conquered that area of the chart. It's like we've done this rodeo more than a few times. It's time to strengthen the muscle in the area of the chart that the north node is transiting. So even if you don't have planets in the signs that the nodes are in, it will still illuminate that area of your chart, and then the ruler of those houses and what those planets are doing will equally kind of give us some context into our journey with that 18-month transit. But the reason that this is really important now is because the nodes are changing signs for the first time in 18 months, for the first time since January of 2022. So back in January of 2022, we had the north and the south node leave Gemini and Sag, that axis, and move into Scorpio and Taurus. Again, they're always going to be directly opposite each other in sister signs. And the north node was in Taurus, so we were really being asked, there's a million things we could say about this, but we were kind of being collectively encouraged to focus on building a very sturdy foundation for ourselves that's built off of stripped down truth, reality, and financial and emotional security, and kind of returning back to our humanity and getting back to basics and sticking with what works, rather than leaning in what is essentially Scorpio traits of maybe leaning into vices, manipulating our way through things, trying to cut corners, trying to say, oh, I'm doing these things, but then you're not really doing it, sticking to the darker side of ourselves, sticking to the things that are toxic and really held us back because it was easier despite not making us happy, and really needing to find balance between the axis of both signs. So the really big change that's happening this month is on the 12th, we're going to be having the nodes now enter Aries and Libra. So there's going to be a culminating sort of boiling point that you'll see this month of both the Taurus and Scorpio areas of your chart kind of hitting this urgency point. And when I say urgency, it doesn't have to mean something bad is going to happen. It's usually just the big reveal or the big ending. It's like the final moment of the performance or the show or something before the curtain closes, because we're really wrapping up 18 months. So whatever you might have seen, and it can be multiple things, whatever themes that maybe became present, challenging, rewarding, anything like that for you, or just of focus since January of 2022, might sort of see what is like a culminating moment of coming full circle and having the conclusion to what maybe was the door opening back then is now closing now. And we've seen peak moments of that happening through the eclipses. The nodes are also going to be indicative of where we're going to be having eclipses in that year and a half. So now that they're moving into Aries and Libra, we're going to be oh my god, I can't speak. We're going to be seeing eclipses in those areas of our chart. So we're kind of handing the baton from what was the fixed signs getting really affected, so Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, to now handing it off to the cardinal signs, which is going to be Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. So with that being said, on top of this, which is something that is on an 18-month cycle, you've lived through a million of these cycles, there's some added intensity because Pluto is going to be squaring both the nodes. So the nodes are always in an opposition, which is already a tension point of needing to find balance between the two. But with Pluto kind of rearing its head into, I'm literally picturing like a ram, like the nodes are like the flag or something, or like a gate or like a ribbon, and it's like the ram is running through it and breaking it. With that being Pluto is coming in and really like doubling down on the intensity of the nodes already being intense on their own, and like bringing so much more weight. And I think there's like a collective feeling of death for people, like shedding and an old life melting away and not recognizing yourself from 18 months ago, which is good. That's the whole point. But I think with the astrology right now, currently, especially yesterday was awful. It feels like you're dying, but you're still stuck in the dead carcass and have not yet entered your new body. Like, it feels like this almost like haunting, gross sort of like, oh my god, like I need a breath of fresh air, I need something new coming in. And I don't think we have anything in air signs right now, which might be really what we can attribute the feeling of being stuck to, no movement, feeling like we're trying to run in quicksand, not having excitement or stimulation or cerebral sort of things going on to excite us. It just kind of feels like we're stuck in like a box, or in a little cell, or in our circumstances or something like that. But let me not jump ahead, because that's not going to be happening until the middle of the month. I just feel like most people are feeling this, and Pluto squaring the nodes is going to be happening pretty much throughout the whole summer. It's going to be July and then through August. So because they move so slowly, it's not just like a blip where it's like, oh, for these 2 days we might feel really intense. It's like for these 2 months you're going to be seeing like life altering changes and the trajectory of your life altering. If you've ordered a reading right now and you're waiting for it, I promise I'm getting to, but this is a great time to get a reading, because this is one of those moments where it's like, what the fuck is going on? I'm not surprised. I can always see like upticks and when I get a lot of readings, and I feel like right now organically getting them in, like a lot of them without posting anything, is one of those things where I'm like, yep, it makes sense. Like a lot of people are like, what the hell is going on right now? So we start with on the 3rd of full moon in Capricorn at 11 degrees. This is why I want you guys to listen to the June recap. You should just listen to June over again now in retrospect, but also the June recap. We talked about the new moon yesterday. It's not, I wouldn't say like the beautiful freshness and like springy feeling of what is a typical new moon, being a new beginning, a new chapter. It's still, I keep saying new moon. It's a full moon. Duh, Kayla, of course it doesn't feel like that, because it's not a new moon. It's a full moon, so it's going to be an ending, a closing of a chapter, culminating, all of the things that we associate with what is a full moon. Maybe something getting exposed, coming to the surface, seeing the truth of a situation, something clicking, something reaching a boiling point, something kind of just culminating together, making more sense. And Capricorn being an earth sign, a cardinal earth sign, it does have initiative energy in the sense that it's like it wants to start something, it wants to go somewhere, it wants to get the wheels turning in order to make some movement or make some action. The earth energy of it is very focused on discipline and commitment and responsibility and kind of the black and white objective necessary variables of starting that thing, rather than like the emotional manifestation, cutesy, like, things like that. So despite it being a full moon, being an ending, having that cardinal energy is kind of like already whooshing in what is like an immediate new beginning right after that ending. It's like the transition point of us probably I would say most people, especially with Pluto here, Pluto's been dancing around the final degrees of Capricorn for like 2 years now, but this year, earlier back in March 26th, I believe it was, it entered Aquarius for like a month or two, and then it retrograded, and it only really shifted about a degree because it's so slow moving. But I want you to look at the Capricorn area of your chart and just try to identify what changes, what transformations, what information, what like mental breakthroughs you've had coming through here, because the full moon here is most likely the kind of laying out all the facts on the table, accepting it, taking it in, and then finding that conclusion or that approach of, okay, how are we going to handle this, or what do we do with this information, or how can we close this part out now that we know what's going on here. And with that being said, it's like not the most exciting full moon. Again, especially with no like air energy in the sky, like it just feels like we're going through the motions a little bit, like we're doing the systematic necessary changes. It feels like we're doing like a computer audit on like a back office for our job, but it's really our lives that we're doing the audit on, basically. So I'll probably do another post just for the full moon so you guys know which area of your chart's affecting. It's going to be at 11 degrees, and I believe it was going to be opposite Mercury, so there could be a tension point with communication, especially because Mercury in Cancer is quite sensitive and nostalgic. There's most likely some karmic cycles coming up with revisiting the past, going back to basics. I would even say think back to late March and even like earlier in June, because those two dates are relevant in terms of the retrograde of Pluto and the intensity of it kind of already dancing around in that area of our chart. So the full moon, I think, is the full acknowledgement of something. I think I said it was also in a sextile to Saturn, so it's at least supported in the ability to make changes and to be responsible and to do the hard thing. It kind of feels like a sucking it up, you gotta do what you gotta do type of thing, but I don't know, that's what we get with Capricorn most of the time. It's not to say Capricorn's like boring or something. People too can be seeing like a lot of celebratory wins, graduating, getting a promotion. Like Capricorn is advancement and accomplishment as well, so it doesn't have to be, I said this in the last reading, like it doesn't feel sad. It's not like this like, heartbreaking sad goodbye. It just feels like a sort of you know what it's making me think of? When I went to cosmetology school, towards the end of it, I just wanted to get the fuck out of there. I was making up hours, and like I couldn't even be excited about graduating anymore because I just wanted it to end. I just wanted to like finish so I could leave. And when I did graduate, I was making up hours, so like everybody didn't graduate on the same day. You usually just graduated on your own day depending on like, when you finished. And I was very proud of myself. I loved cosmetology school. That was like I feel like the first things that I actually in my life completed and like could say I accomplished for myself. And I literally graduated on like, I think I was going in on Saturdays at that point, and I stayed late, so like no one was even there. And usually when you graduate cosmetology school, I think across the board, it's this big dramatic, flamboyant, like there's this machine where you clock in and out, and because your graduation is ruled by the hours that you are studying and stuff like that, you clock out for your last hour, and it's this big hurrah. And so I remember when anybody else would do what was called final clock out, because they were leaving and they would never have to come back, it would be this thing where everybody would like clap for them while they'd walk down the stairs, and they'd go up to the machine and do the last clock out, and then they'd hug everybody, and it was a big thing. And I think I was there on a Saturday at like 8 o'clock, and I was literally only with teachers. There was no students there. I like didn't really get to even say bye to the people I wanted to say bye to. I didn't have family there or anybody. Like people usually had their families come. I didn't have anything like that. I just was like, oh, okay, I'm finishing today. I just wanted to get it over with. I don't really like a lot of attention on me for stuff like that anyway, so I walked down the stairs. I do the final clock out. It's just it's like 4 teachers being like, wow, instead of like a crowd of 100 people like it normally is. And I was like, thanks, guys. I go upstairs. I think my mom literally forgot to pick me up that day. Didn't even know I was graduating. I was sitting on the lawn by the school closed. My brother got me. He was pissed off that he had to get me, and then I went home. And it was just one of those things where like I kind of privately felt proud of myself, but didn't feel like I could do this like public celebration, or like I didn't really want people to acknowledge it, or it felt already kind of drawn out. Nobody around me really got to celebrate the win with me or wanted to. So I'm thinking of like the ride home from there, like despite the fact that I was kind of bummed that like it felt like it was something that I just did by myself and like no one really was there to like celebrate me or something like that. I feel like I had a little smirk like going out the window in my brother's car while he's so pissed off driving me home, where I'm just like, wow, I actually finished that. Like I didn't quit, I didn't drop out. I actually completed it and I feel accomplished, and I feel like that is kind of like the same feeling that I'm getting here with the full moon in Capricorn. On the 10th, we have Mars entering Virgo. So Mars has been in Leo for, I want to say about 2 months. It usually stays in a sign for about 2 months. And it going through Leo is a lot of violence and fights and just all these like extreme events with children, pregnancies, women, wives, domestic matters, I already said children, like even things with content online being quite violent and things like that. I feel like we saw a lot of pregnant women getting shot, and we saw a lot of or just domestic matters that got very violent, and children getting very hurt or committing pain, maybe, intentionally or not. And I think I mentioned that in the May or June reading about how we were going to see a lot of that. Now moving into Virgo, Virgo's Mercury ruled, so it's about communication, information, technology, health, routine, jobs, occupation, attention to detail, things needing to be a certain way, order, being of service. It's labor, it's hard work, it's like doing work for other people. And with it just being Mercury, it's speaking, talking, writing, it's posts, it's emails, it's news. I would say with Mars, okay, going through Virgo, when I meet somebody that has Mars in Virgos, they're very Mars in Virgo, they're very lethal with their tongue when they're charged up and they're angry. It's someone who can like read a room and also like drag somebody to filth verbally, due to the fact that they're well prepared with receipts and information and evidence to back up what they're fighting for, what they believe in, or what they're passionate about. So in terms of like this being collective, I would say social media, there might be like a lot of combative energy, a lot of violence and aggression, or like these new protocols with the way that things can and can't be posted on social media in terms of the actual content. One, there might be, for example, like we might see content that's like absolutely horrific or violent or dangerous or demeaning or like hate speech or bigoted or literally putting people in danger, like not even regulated. It's kind of like, oh, well, that still gets the green light. And seeing how it's reminding me of when Mars was in Gemini, because that's Mercury rule too, and that was fucking awful with misinformation, so much chaos around social media. I'm sure there will be things with Twitter being like, there's going to be changes with Twitter and it might cause an uproar, or there might be the like acceptance of what is like very, very bad and destructive habits, patterns, algorithms, ideas, concepts, with the way that people can and cannot speak to each other, post the content itself, or interact online. Equally, there might be like a restriction against the correct information and against providing actual evidence for things. Like, I just think there's going to be what is something that can cause a lot of pushback or uproar against technology. We're going to see probably a lot of this kind of bleed into the news as well, in media, in the news cycle. I'm trying to figure out if I would say Mars is like because Mars is the planet that's happening here. Mars is doing its thing, which is very aggressive, assertive. It's very passionate. It's very, it stands up on its own 2 feet and fights for what it believes in. It's very volatile. It's a war. It's confrontation. It's lots of changes happening. Virgo is quite calm, or I shouldn't say calm, but it's quite collected, and what is the word I'm looking for? Like meticulous and detail oriented. So to have what is Mars kind of coming in swinging into Virgo energy, there I'm picturing like a lot of maybe heavy debate, a lot of misinformation, or the just verbally fighting, debating over like heated debates over information or what is right versus what is wrong. There could be a lot of changes even with like the healthcare system, medication, pharmaceuticals, even things that have to do with food, diet, because it rules the earth as well. It's an earth element. Work, occupation, people's employment in general, jobs. I guess the overlap of maybe technology because it's Mercury ruled. I'm gonna have to really sit and think about what I would say. I actually should. I'm gonna look at what happened the last time Mars was in Virgo, because that's usually going to give us the best insight. But I'm interested to see. I'm not too excited about it. Usually whenever we have Mars in a Mercury ruled sign, it gets everybody very frazzled, because it's when shit hits the fan with like the people of the world or of the country versus the information they're getting fed, and more often than not we're getting fed the wrong information or things that aren't going to be helpful and are only going to divide us more. So something like Mars in Virgo makes me think of people writing their fucking like think pieces, and they're just it's going to be very, I think, reminiscent of Mars in Gemini which was the long 7 months of September to like, when was it, March of this year, of Mars being stuck in a Mercury ruled sign, which is just saying a whole lot of nothing basically, and having so much fire behind it, and not even ending up with like an agree to disagree conclusion. It's going to be out of Leo though, so thankfully like Leo and Venus aren't doing what is this very cat and mouse stance anymore. Venus is going to be still chilling in Leo, and Mars, I think, being in Virgo, if anything, is going to bring maybe more combative energy to like the romantic front, or things with collectively probably things with finances, information technology, social media, the workplace, and the healthcare industry. And then more in your personal life, probably a little bit of I'm right, you're wrong, defending yourself, like issues around communication within relationships. All, it doesn't have to be like all romantic either, platonic, professional, etc. The day after that, Mercury is going to enter Leo. So with this, fighting energy around the information that we want to get across, we are now being like extremely performative and dramatic about the way that we express it to people, because Mercury, being the planet of communication, going into Leo is quite attention grabbing and like, look at me. It's a good, I mean, I have Mercury and Leo natally, so I don't even know why I'm talking shit about it, because I feel like I emulate a lot of Mercury and Leo. It's somebody who I would say is like a good storyteller. It's somebody who can exaggerate a lot, maybe have like a colorful word choice, but I would say collectively this is people like finding more pride and speaking about how they feel, speaking up. It's a little bit more confident in its approach to something. Worst case scenario, there might be people struggling with their own internal pick-me energy of like feeling like they need somebody else to co-sign on what they think or feel, or saying certain things for validation or acceptance, or not even like fully agreeing with something you're posting or saying, or sharing with the world, but being like, oh, this will do good, this will get a lot of likes, this will get attention, a lot of people would agree with me if I say this, like this group of people or this person might get interested in me. I actually have this joke in my friend group, excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't know why my voice is like this today, where we say like you're Gatsbying for somebody, which is essentially like, this is so silly. I hope you guys get what I mean though. But it's like when you Gatsby for somebody, like with the story of the Great Gatsby being like a fucking Leonardo DiCaprio essentially throwing like what is this huge party for this girl that I haven't seen it in so long. I'm like desperately trying to remember the plot right now. But like going out of his way to like put on a whole performance of like these grandiose lifestyle parties of like or riches and like luxury and things like that just for one woman. We always say that Gatsbying is like, for example, when you post something on your story but you only care if your crush sees it, or like you say something calculated knowing oh, this will win the approval of this type of person, and like pretending you don't know what game you're playing, and it's like you're doing a lot just for one set of eyes to validate you. And I think sometimes with Leo and Mercury and then fucking Mars and Virgo, and then the nodes changing into Aries and Libra, there's going to be a lot of like doing things for the approval of other people, and that will kick off what is the 18-month cycle of starting from a place where we care about so much about what everybody else thinks, everything that we want in the person that we're dating, all of our relationships, and essentially at the end of the 18 months we're going to come to the conclusion that we should have been doing what was right for us and finding our own individuality the entire time. So there's your sneak peek to what the hell you're going to be learning for the next 18 months. On the 12th, the day after that, that's when we have the nodes enter Aries and Libra, and then on the 17th we have a new moon in Cancer at 24 degrees. So let me actually pull up the chart and we'll look at the aspects together. I'm hoping this one, it should be a little bit nicer in terms of like, as opposed to the Capricorn full moon. This one hopefully will kick up the good vibes again. All right, it's going to be at 24 degrees, which is a Pisces degree, which can be quite escapist, but also very ethereal. There might be some spiritual breakthroughs. You just want to be careful with not leaning into your addictions or vices or escapism, things that are more comfortable to you, even if they're not too great for you. You want to more so take advantage of the fact that it'll give you the spiritual insight to tap into like having really strong revelations or feeling intuitively connected to yourself. It'll naturally be in an opposition to Pluto and Capricorn. So there's already some intensity on the table. It's a new moon though. So a new moon opposite Pluto is usually like a transformative new beginning. If it was a full moon, I would maybe be a little bit more concerned because that's usually like I have to let go of something I don't want to let go of yet. Whereas a new moon in new moon in Cancer opposite Pluto can still kick up the intensities of whatever like gunk we're still dealing with in the Capricorn area of our chart, but it allows you to kind of heavily dig your heels in the sand and really kick up a new beginning in the area of your chart that Cancer rules. So I always try to give you guys an example of what's going on in my life so we can better understand the energy. Let's look at the aspects first though. It's opposite Pluto. Oh, it's going to be square the nodes. So this is a pivotal, damn. All right, wait, this is a really big new moon. I think I underestimated it at first. It'll also be trine Neptune, sextile Uranus. Boy, oh boy. Okay, this is a big new moon. I want you guys to mark your calendars. It's on July 17th. How do we talk about this with my life? I talked about how I was saying the Capricorn full moon related to me in the June recap. I'm a Cancer sun. It's not conjunct to my sun. I'm a Cancer sun at 17 degrees. So it's not like directly on my sun, my identity or anything like that. But Cancer rules my 9th house, which is traveling, faith, philosophy, education, your perspective, your greater understanding of things. Really big opportunities, having the ability to get out of your comfort zone and explore uncharted territory. It's studying, it's being both the teacher and the student with literal education, but also being a teacher and student of life, and kind of pumping helium into what is your identity or your purpose and watching it get a lot bigger. So to have a new moon there for me, damn, I'm like, what's going to be happening here? There might be a heavy emphasis on where I am currently. I don't know if I'm suddenly going to be traveling or going somewhere, because there's going to be that ending in my 3rd house, which is essentially my immediate environment and the way that I typically think. So there's probably going to be a really new beginning, if not in my physical circumstances of traveling or moving somewhere, in my perspective of things. I'm probably going to be thinking of things or seeing things in a new light or a new way. That's going to be expanding my vision with something. With a sextile to Uranus in my 7th house of relationships, there might be an unexpected partnership or relationship that kind of allows me the liberation or the freedom or the unexpected opportunity to travel or to expand my mindset in that way. Or I might be meeting like a spiritual mentor, someone that helps me expand my understanding or perspective. Like it might be through the vessel of the partnership or guidance of somebody else. What did I say? It's also going to be in a trine to Neptune in my 5th house, which is romance and creativity. So there might be something where, I don't know, maybe I unexpectedly meet somebody. If it's not that, it could be that I'm leaning more so into creative. And I kind of have a feeling that I know what this might be, but I don't want to jump onto it too quickly. But with a trine to Neptune, which goes far and wide and expands the kind of creative pursuit and the indulgence of something in my 5th house, which is creativity and entertainment, that's a really supportive aspect. So a new moon there can kind of inflate this area of my chart as well. And then I feel like there's one more aspect that I said. Oh, that it's square the nodes, which are happening between my 1st house of self and my 7th house of relationships. Very interesting. So that's the way that you can kind of analyze how it's happening in your chart. Of course, I'm more than happy to do a reading for you guys. Also, I want to include this. I'll put it, I don't know why this wasn't the first thing I said. I'll put it in the actual post. I have a new service on my website. I'm trying to add what is essentially like more affordable services for people, because I know my prices are high. I don't want anyone to think that I don't know that. I do know that. It's just that I almost have to raise them sometimes as protection to prevent too many people from ordering. And I know that sounds silly, but sometimes I'm so overbooked that I cannot do it, and I fluctuate them a lot. I'm sure you guys notice that if you're on my site often. But I think I've talked about how I'm trying to prioritize more so the relationships of the people I work with very closely, rather than, oh, come one, come all, like every single person ever I'm just going to do a reading for, because that one is exhausting, but doesn't provide even the person buying the reading with the most value than if they were a longer term client. But with this product, or with this service, it's only $50 right now. It's on sale. And it says it's a 10-minute reading. I usually always go over the minute amount of the readings that I offer. But this will essentially just like give you a good idea of what the hell you're going through. It's a first glance sort of rundown reading. And when just like if you had like one simple question, or you just wanted like a little perspective on something, or what to look out for, should I do this or should I not do this, like that's the perfect thing for you. I just wanted to have something like easy, quick, and affordable for both you and I. And I feel like this is a perfect reading for like if you want to know how a new moon or a full moon or an eclipse or what this is doing is going to affect you for your chart. So I just wanted to include that. I don't know why I didn't mention that, but I'm going to include it like in the post, that way you guys can actually access it. But I hope that that's a good idea. I don't know, do you guys think that that's like a good thing to implicate? Let me know if there's like a type of reading that you would want and that you don't see on my website, because again, all this is like for you guys. So if there's something where you're like, I just wish there was this type of reading, like tell me and I will make sure I can put it on there. But yes, very big intense new moon. I'll try to do a separate post just on that. On the 23rd we enter Leo season, and it won't feel like a big crazy thing because we've already had a lot of Leo energy with Venus and Mars going through it. Hold on, I need to drink my water. But the sun entering Leo will take us out of any mushy, gushy, gunky Cancerian sludge. If you feel like you're kind of in like a sad phase, or you're just nostalgic, or you feel like you're thinking about the past a lot, or you just want to stay home, or you feel a little bit like you're looking inward, you're being introspective, that's totally fine. The sun moving into Leo might exasperate what is, essentially the more fun part of summer. It's like a little less nostalgic and a little bit more in the now, a little bit less thinking of the past, and a little bit more like, let's do something fun today. It's dramatic, it's theatrical, it's fun, it's creative, it's youthful. When I think of Cancer season, I think of like doing like a summer cleaning. I think of somebody maybe like thinking of if they want to bring old friendships or relationships into this summer with them. It makes me think of somebody maybe like clearing up their space or their domestic environment to feel more adjusted to the season. You're starting to smell summer, you're starting to feel things that come back into bringing you into the season. And then I feel like by Leo season, it's like you're hitting the beach every single day, you're soaking up the sun, you're saying yes to plans, you feel really inspired, you have new ideas, things like that. Thankfully too, like once it reaches over that 29th degree of Cancer, probably I would say around the 22nd, it might feel The 22nd is actually a big day. I remember I had it written down. I need to look at it. But the sun is going to be opposite Pluto. And normally when that happens, it's less something you have to worry about in your personal life. It can feel like a very intense, heavy day. I think collectively, politically, that day will be like incredibly intense. There might be like something very, this is a whole nother thing to talk about, but like big and intense and explosive with male authority figure, celebrity, or politician. It could be anything as extreme as like Biden dying to something as, I don't want to say minor, but like something around a very, what is intense announcement or speech or protocol that kind of sends people into a fearful place of like, okay, what do we do now? There's usually a tension point or extreme like intensity. I don't know why I sound like a 12-year-old boy right now, I'm sorry. Because you're putting what is the sun, which is men, authority figures, government rules, establishment, authority, into an opposition and the most uncomfortable aspect of Pluto, which is like dictatorship, fear, paranoia, power and control dynamics. I've been telling you guys, I literally feel like July is like wartime, and I'm not saying that to scare anybody. I'm not saying you're gonna have like missile shooting in your front yard this month, but rather that I think there's like an undeniable need to acknowledge that like while it might not look like we're in war in the way that we saw it in textbooks, like our society is quite literally crumbling down. And even like with the Supreme Court yesterday ruling the what was it I didn't even read into it because it was pissing me off, and I was like, I need to look at this a different day because I was not in a good mood yesterday. But oh my god, what was it? It wasn't same-sex marriage. It was, that you could like be discriminated against if you were like LGBTQ plus in like any establishment, that you were kind of like allowed to, I guess, be denied service. And then the student loan forgiveness being ruled against, which I talked about on an old Patreon post. I'll post the updates I guess I had for that. But all of the things that like on a surface level, people that maybe aren't too politically inclined, which I wouldn't even consider myself somebody who's like super into or aware of politics all the time. I just try to focus on what I can control on. But I think the general consensus is like, oh, things are just bad now, like haha. It's almost like a punchline because it's that hopelessness that we're feeling, I guess. And I feel like what people are refusing to see or struggling to accept is that like all of these headlines we see, all of these big things where we keep losing faith in our country if you're in the US, are it's like every single sign of what leads to a civil war. I did TikTok videos on this. I'm going to try to link everything that I'm mentioning in this video, but like we're it's not like a funny haha our president sucks joke anymore. It's like people really need to lean into their community and into their neighbors and into any sense of network they have to try to start like strategizing what they can do to keep afloat. God forbid like we start entering a system where we really lose our rights, even more so than now, or we lose ownership, or we lose income, or we lose autonomy, or we lose connectivity. Like I would just have like, again, I'm not trying to scare anybody, like I think it's just better to be prepared in advance, and I'm not saying something super fucking bad is going to happen, and I know, and I'm not telling you guys that's not what it is. I share every single observation that I have with people, especially because I don't even know the details of everything all the time. I see what I see astrologically, I try to explain it, and then thankfully other people provide context that helps translate it into what, like how it's playing out into real life. But yeah, I would just like really prioritize looking into like even textbooks about war and about propaganda and about learning your own rights, knowing your own rights, anything with laws, trying to have like emergency things set up for yourself, things like that might be helpful. And also just like a game plan, God forbid there's something where like you need to be sheltered for a few months, or the internet goes out, or you lose access to your banking, things like that. And again, I know that's like, I'm not trying to scare you guys, I'm saying like the scariest shit ever, but again, I'm not saying all that's going to unfold this month, but I think July is a pivotal, intense new beginning. Pluto square the nodes, a really intense new moon in Cancer. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, Pluto at its returning point of the US Pluto return for the second time. All of that, and Saturn and Pisces, like, this is the beginning of what is, I think, the unfolding over the next 18 months of themes of war. And then I think when Uranus moves into Gemini, like, we might be full throttle at that point, which will be in 2026. And I did do a video too on how the last time that we had the grand fixed square that we had, I think late May, early June, was literally with World War II and the Revolutionary War. Like, we're seeing, that's why astrology is so damn juicy, because we're seeing reoccurrences of things that have already happened, and if people just listened, we would be able to call it from a mile away. But I digress. On the same day, 23rd, Venus stations retrograde. This is the big kicker that everyone's talking about. This is something that I would say is probably going to more so affect you the most in your personal lives. Venus is the planet of love, money, and beauty. Relationships, how we love and how we want to be loved in return. It's the very harmless, frivolous indulgences of life. It's like eating our favorite food, having a crush on somebody, wearing our favorite, pair of sneakers, things like that. Doing the things that are familiar and comfy to us, warm and cozy energy. It makes me think of when you're younger and you're at school and you find out you're getting pizza because it's Friday, or you're watching a movie because you have a substitute. Like, it's these very lighthearted sort of like, yes, this feels good. Like, I'm excited about this sort of energy. It's also fine art. It's beauty. It's antiques. It is luxuries, like anything like that. Shopping. So when we have it go retrograde, these themes can kind of be more susceptible to complications. People are very dramatic and make it seem like, oh, you're gonna get super fucking ugly. Every relationship that was awful to you is gonna get worse. Like, it does not have to get to that extreme. It's gonna affect some people more than others. If you have a Leo Venus, which I do, I'm a little nervous about it, but this might be touching on you a lot more personally. If you have Leo placements in general, where you're a Leo rising, you will be feeling this the most. I would say maybe Aquarius as well, and then honorable mention to Scorpio and Taurus. But this will essentially, until September, just kind of retrace its steps and float around the sign of Leo, where we have already made our first stride through Leo with Venus going through it already. So it's like we've already adjusted to the energy, but now we're going to be going backwards. Think of when you go on one of those roller coasters where you go forward and it's like a loop, you go upside down, and then you reach the other side and then you just go backwards. It's the same thing, but just backwards. That's kind of what a Venus or a retrograde is in general. But with Venus, it's a little bit more quick moving and a little bit more easily to clock. Like, it's something you notice more than like a Saturn retrograde or a Neptune retrograde. So decisions and feelings and thoughts and ideas and desires and relationships that have been present for you like the last 3 weeks might be like reassessed or backtrack or lose progress or digress or have stagnancy or have like the opposite result than they recently did. And it'll be something that will head into September. So, well, into October, but retrograde until September. I don't recommend getting surgical procedures for beauty or aesthetics. Like, I don't recommend getting injectables. I wouldn't do a risky, crazy like haircut or like a new hair color that you've never done before. It's okay if you like, you don't have to stop your life. If you've gotten the same hair color a million times and you're going for like your root touch up, that's fine. If it's something where like you suddenly want to go blonde and you've never been to this salon before but they look really good, like things like that, I'd be careful with. I would maybe not get tattoos right now. Be careful with really big purchases. If you do get things, make sure you get the warranty. With relationships, if you are diving headfirst into a relationship right now, whether it's an ex, a new person, you're going to do what you're going to do. I'm going to recommend that you tread lightly and that you detach from any outcome. Be okay with this person fucking lying, cheating, stealing, being the worst person ever, and also be okay with maybe this is like the person you're going to marry. Because with the fixed energy of Leo being quite stubborn and seeking attention and needing validation, it's like this can be the time where you throw the whole summer out for somebody that a year from now you're like, why the fuck did I even waste my time on that? Like, I don't know why I needed them to like me so bad. Things like that. With exes, they do often come back. Old friendships too. Old partnerships, people you used to work with, things like that might come up. It's not inherently bad if they show up. If they left on a note where you stopped talking because they like dirtily disrespected you, don't talk to them again. If it's an old friend that you lost touch with and you just kind of both went your separate ways and you miss them, talk to them. Like, just use your own discernment. I will tell you though, if you're like you have these really strong feelings for somebody that you just met or something, and you're listening to this and you're like, okay, she's saying that, but like it doesn't apply to me because this person, it does apply to you. I'm telling you. And that's not to say it's doomed or it's bad. There's people who meet during Venus retrogrades and it's like the most insane like whirlwind love romance, and it doesn't end badly, but it's short-lived. Like, there's things like that, because this is the thing. Venus is going to be, it's not just the retrograde, it's that she's going to be squaring Uranus, which is really going to rip the fucking rug out from underneath people's feet and cause a lot of unexpected, unstable, impulsive decisions within love and finances. And what else is there going to be to Leo? I don't think anything's in Aquarius right now. It'll be no, it won't square the nodes, I don't think. Either way, it's just very unstable. It's very destabilizing. It's like you're trying to stand up and reach something on a really high shelf, but you're using a rocking chair to stand on it instead of like a stool. Like, it's just very susceptible to one foot in, one foot out. This, that. You like me a lot, now I actually don't like you. I want to be with this person, I hate this person. Like, that sort of thing. So just try lightly with that. On the 23rd, Chiron is also stationing retrograde in Aries at 19 degrees, right on my fucking Saturn. I literally can't take it anymore. Chiron retrograde usually gives you the opportunity to retrace your steps or be more introspective and look inward in terms of pain, wounds, sensitivities, and the need to heal. Or it's kind of like we're looking at something that might have happened, I would say, since December of 2022 to now. It's like things get to slow down in terms of any pain or the need to heal, and it's like you get to look at it a little bit more carefully and finally unpack it in a way that maybe wasn't available to you as it was happening or unfolding. I don't think I feel like I notice Chiron retrogrades because I'm always like paying attention to them, but Chiron's so slow moving. I feel like most people don't notice it. It's in the Aries area of your chart, and it's been here for like years. It's gonna be here for a few more years. So you usually want to look at the second half of every year, like summer to December. That's usually when Chiron is retrograde, and that might give you some more insight. I feel like for me personally, it's been something where I'm able to I just feel like I have a better handle on my emotions and on looking and dealing with and observing my own pain when it's retrograde as opposed to when it's direct. Sometimes when it's direct, it's like it's causing the pain, and then when it retrogrades, it's like, well, it still happened, but now we can review what we learned, like that sort of thing. And then on the 28th, Mercury enters Virgo and joins Mars in the mix, and I'm sure I need to find the day where they're going to conjoin, because I'm sure that's going to be a combative day on the internet and on the news. But Mercury in Virgo has a very strong attention to detail, very eloquent, a very meticulous way of communicating. It's very informative. It's very why can't I think of words right now? This is the opposite of Mercury and Virgo, the way I'm like trying to find words. It's very like well educated. It has a strong attention to detail. Someone with Mercury and Virgo is like someone you would want to teach you how to do something that's really complicated, or like this is the type of person you would want to explain such a very big concept to you because they make it so digestible and easy to understand. You might be reading more, writing more, learning about something new. I find that people are more interested in actual like fact-based things rather than opinions, like things that are more informative. It's very much like back to school energy, even though it's going to be happening in late July. I feel like Mercury and Virgo is so like when you're buying new school supplies and you're putting like the dividers in your binder, you're setting your backpack up all cute. Like it has a time and a place for things. It likes things to be a certain way. If anything, it can be quite like anal and maybe judgmental, or it can feel like, if you don't say things the right way or perfectly, then you're wrong. But ultimately, Mercury loves being in Virgo because it's one of its signs of rulership, so it functions very comfortably here. But that is pretty much all we have for the month. Full moon in Cap, new moon in Cancer. That axis of your chart this month is getting illuminated and lit up. You might see some transformation there. Venus retrograde in Leo is going to be for quite some time. So just try to slow down with decision making in regards to love, money, and whatever themes the area of your chart that Leo rules is in. And I think that's pretty much it. Just expect that like by September, October, when we enter eclipse season, things are going to look a lot different and things are going to be very new, and you might be feeling very uncomfortable and reluctant to change and feeling like you don't know what the fuck is going on, and you feel yucky and you feel like you're doing everything wrong, or you feel like you should be doing something but it feels like you're also waiting at the same time. Like all of those things are normal with the transits that we're having, especially if you're a fixed rising sign. But you're good. You're good. You can never make the wrong decision, and everything is always falling into place the way that it's supposed to. I will include the new service, the mini reading, if you guys are interested. And I'm going to try to find those interesting dates. I think I might start posting what I normally tweet more on here, because the reason I was like, I feel like there's definitely going to be more changes with Twitter is because I saw something today that said that Elon established something where you essentially can't see more than 6,000 tweets a day unless you pay for Twitter Blue. And even if you pay for Twitter Blue, I think that there's still a max to how many tweets you can see. And then if you don't have Twitter Blue, I think it's 600. And then if you just made a new account, like you just got Twitter, it's 300. So it's limiting you to how much information you have availability to. You're being restricted to the amount of content you can consume. Which sounds good in terms of like, that's good because that means that I can't spend too much time on Twitter. No, because that means that certain information and posts and content will be restricted from you. Like we have entered, once Mars went into Gemini, a time of extreme misinformation, and like we're reliving what is essentially the phase or the era of like the burning of books, the erasure of information, and the bending of truth and reality in history, and it's not good. It's so dangerous. A war on information and education is so dangerous. Maybe with Mars and Virgo, we're gonna see some combative things around education, because that's going to be for July. So by the time children are back in school in August or September, like we might be hearing about new protocols or new curriculums or way of approaching certain topics or themes or subjects. And I just I want to get out of the US. I do. And if you're not here, I'd love to hear about what your experience is in your own country, and if I don't even know what your perspective is of the US, because I can assume you're probably afraid. But I hope everybody has a good month. Just try to go easy on yourself. I will say it's very intense. So try not to be impulsive. Do what's right for you. Be selfish. Be kind to yourself. Be compassionate to yourself. And try to spend more time just alone and introspective, not where, don't not hang out with people, but like give yourself a good 10 minutes every day off your phone and just be silent, have some time with yourself, look inward. And if you're going through some really tough stuff, this too shall pass. And if you're entering what is like a winning streak for yourself as well, congratulations, because everybody's really like, people are changing and transforming, and we're all just in our little cocoon phase, and we're going to be blossoming butterflies by the time fall comes. So I love you guys. Thank you for listening. I hope this helped you guys, and enjoy.